I never thought I'd be sitting here, typing out my story for a stranger's opinion, but honestly, I don't know what else to do. So here it is. I just found out my wife, Lisa, slept with our friend Mark during our last family vacation. Right before she told me she's pregnant. Pregnant with whose kid? That's the question that's wrangling my brain into knots, and I swear, my stomach feels like I swallowed a rock. It all started when I was going through her stuff Monday morning. I had an uneasy feeling for weeks, little things, small signs I ignored. But that morning I decided to look for something, anything, that could give me a clear sign of what was really going on. I wasn't even trying to find evidence of cheating. I just wanted to understand if I was losing my mind. That's when I found it. A receipt tucked inside her purse. It was from a hotel in the nearby city from 2 nights ago. No big deal, right? Except that it wasn't just a hotel receipt. It was from a romantic getaway, just her and Mark, no doubt about it. The room was paid for with her credit card, and there was a small note scribbled on the back. "Thanks for a perfect night, can't wait to see you again." That's when my stomach dropped. I felt the blood drain out of my face. I held the paper so tightly that my knuckles turned white. My hands were trembling, and I could feel the heat rushing through my body, like I was burning from the inside. The scent of coffee from the kitchen suddenly felt overwhelming, like it was mocking me. I knew what I had to do next. When she came home that evening, I didn't jump straight into accusations. Instead, I waited. I wanted to see her face when she lied, when she tried to deny it. But I also needed proof, solid evidence I could hold in my hand. That's when I started digging further. Over the next few hours, I checked her phone, her emails, her social media, anything that could tell me if I was crazy or if I was right. The more I looked, the more I found. Texts from Mark, nothing overt, but enough to see they'd been exchanging secret messages for weeks. Flirty, suggestive stuff. Even a few photos of her in a bikini which she swore she deleted, but I found cached copies in the deleted folder. The worst part, the way her voice sounded when she finally came into the room. She was cheerful, almost too cheerful, as if she had something to hide. I felt that same cold sweat break out on my forehead. When I confronted her, she froze. Her eyes darted and her hand trembled as she reached for her coffee mug. "Where did you get that?" she asked, voice a little too high, trying to sound casual. I just looked at her, holding the receipt out like a weapon. "You've been lying to me, Lisa. I found this. A hotel receipt from 2 nights ago. Who were you with?" She blinked, her face flickering with guilt, but then she recovered. "It's nothing, just a business trip I forgot to tell you about." I shook my head slowly. "Don't lie to me. I know everything. You and Mark, you've been sneaking around, and now you're telling me you're pregnant. That's what you wanted to tell me." Her eyes welled with tears. "It's yours." "I swear, I didn't mean for it to happen this way. I was drunk, and Mark, I don't know, things just happened. Please, I need you to understand." That's when I felt a boiling rage rise in my chest, hotter than my stomach. The betrayal cut deep, worse than I could have imagined. I wanted to scream, but I kept my voice steady. "You're pregnant? Well, I guess I'd better find out if that's true, because I'm not going to be your fool anymore." She looked at me, pleading, her voice trembling. "Please, don't do something you'll regret. We can fix this." Fix it. That's rich. I knew I had to get ahead of this mess, to plan my next move carefully. I didn't trust her anymore, not even a little, but this wasn't just about her cheating. It was about destroying what's left of my dignity. I couldn't just walk away and pretend everything was fine. No, I had to make her pay for this. That's when the idea started forming in my mind. Revenge isn't my style, at least, not until now. Now I need her to understand what she's done, and I need her to understand that I'm not going to be the fool in this game. I'm going to hit back, but with precision. I want her to feel the weight of her betrayal, to see it reflected back at her in a way she won't forget. And I knew just how to do it, but I've got to get everything in motion first. I need her to think I'm still the same guy, the one she married. That's the only way this will work. I'll keep her close, let her think I'm still naive, still trusting, while I set my trap. The moment I left that room, I felt a strange sense of clarity. The pieces are falling into place, and I finally see what I've got to do, but I'll tell you more about that in the next part. For now, I'm just trying to breathe through this storm inside me. That night, I couldn't sleep, of course. My mind kept circling around what I'd found, replaying those texts, that receipt, her trembling voice when she lied. every detail seared into my brain like a brand. I kept thinking about how she looked when I confronted her, her cheeks flushed, eyes darting, as if she knew the jig was up and was desperately trying to save herself. But she wasn't going to get away with it. Instead of collapsing into a sleep-deprived mess, I decided that I needed a plan, a way to make her understand that she'd crossed a line and that I wasn't going to take this lying down. I had to be smart about it. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the dim glow of the street lamp filtering through the window, listening to the distant hum of cars passing by. That's when the idea hit me. I needed to turn her own game against her, make her see that I knew everything and that I was capable of destroying her in return. The first move was simple. I had to get physical evidence of her affair, more than just the receipt and some texts. I knew she'd clean up her digital footprint, so I had to be quicker. I grabbed my phone and started sneaking into her social media accounts, just enough to take screenshots of any incriminating messages she might have missed deleting. I also set up a hidden camera in the bedroom. Nothing flashy, just a small device that could record her when she thought I wasn't paying attention. It wasn't about spying out of spite for me. This was about gathering enough proof so she couldn't deny her betrayal. I also wanted her to feel what it was like to be watched, to realize her secrets weren't safe, even from her own husband. The plan was to make her think she was still in control while I was quietly preparing my counterattack. The next day she left for work, acting as if nothing had happened. I watched her pack her bag, her face tight with nerves I secretly relished. As soon as she was gone, I cracked open my laptop and started digging through her emails. I needed to make sure there were no surprises left, no last-minute cleanup she hadn't gotten around to. I found a few more messages from Mark, confirming plans to meet up after her trip, along with some suggestive photos again. While she was at work, I also called a private investigator. I kept it low profile, just enough to watch her day to day. I told him to follow her, keep an eye on her movements, and gather any additional proof I might need. That way, I could stay focused on my plan, knowing that someone else was watching. Her for me. The last thing I wanted was for her to catch wind of what I was doing and start covering her tracks. Later that evening, I sat in my living room staring at the recordings from the camera I'd hidden in the bedroom. She was so confident, so casual, like she thought she was untouchable. But I saw the way her hand trembled when she touched her stomach, like she was trying to convince herself everything was okay. She didn't know I'd caught her on tape, but I did. And that gave me clarity. I had enough evidence. Now I just had to wait for her to come home. I planned to confront her then, but not before I'd set the stage. I wanted her to realize I wasn't some naive, trusting husband anymore. I was calculating, cold. I knew she'd expect tears or pleas, but I was ready for something different, a confrontation that would shake her to her core. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, something to steady my nerves, and stared into the amber liquid. My palms were sweaty, but I kept my voice steady. When she got home, I was going to show her everything. All. Her lies, all her secrets. She'd think she'd won this game, but I was about to show her how badly she'd lost. And if she thought I was going to sit quietly and accept this mess, she had another thing coming. I'd planned every step carefully. She'd regret ever crossing me. I was ready to make her feel what it was like to be betrayed. The question now was how far I was willing to go, and honestly, I hadn't decided yet. Sometimes revenge is just about making someone realize they're not in control anymore. When she finally walked in that evening, I was already prepared. She looked surprised to see the serious look on my face, and I could see her eyes flicker with worry. That's when I pulled out my phone, played the recordings, and let her see what I'd uncovered. Her face went pale. That was the moment I knew I had her right where I wanted her. This was just the beginning. I played the recordings on my phone, watching her face drain of color as she realized I wasn't bluffing. Her hands trembled as she tried to snatch the device away, but I held firm. I wanted her to see every detail, the secret messages, the dates, the way her voice cracked when she tried to deny it all. "You see this?" I asked, voice low but steady. "You thought you could get away with it. You thought I'd never find out, but I did." My stomach was clenched tight, but I kept my composure. Inside, I was boiling. She'd betrayed me, lied to my face, and now I was about to make her pay. She looked like she was about to cry, tears pooling in her eyes, but I wasn't finished. "I want to know the truth," I said, voice sharper now. "Who's the father, mine or Mark?" She hesitated, then burst into tears. "It's yours, I swear. I didn't mean for it to happen, but I love you. I thought you'd never find out. Please give me a chance to explain." I shook my head. "There's nothing left to explain. You lied, cheated, and you betrayed everything we built. I don't know if this kid is mine or Mark, and honestly, I don't care anymore. You've broken whatever trust we had. I want you to leave." Her sobs grew louder. She tried to cling to me. "Please don't do this. We can fix it. I swear I'll do whatever it takes." That was the final straw. I pushed her away, feeling the heat of anger rushing through my veins. "Fix what? Your lies, your cheating. No, I'm done. I want out." I grabbed my keys and she looked at me with pleading eyes. "Please don't leave me like this. I need you, the baby." I cut her off sharply. "The baby's not mine anymore if it ever was. I want you gone. Pack your bags and don't come back." She collapsed on the couch, crying and begging. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The sight of her in tears made my stomach churn, but I knew I had to be cold. I'd let her think she still had some control, but I was already planning what came next. I called a lawyer right then and there, started the process of divorce. I couldn't stay in a house where I didn't trust her, where every moment felt like walking on glass. I also contacted the investigator again, asked him to keep watching her, just in case she tried to pull some last-minute stunt. I needed every piece of evidence I could get, especially if the paternity test ended up in my favor. Throughout the night, I felt like I was walking through a fog. My head was spinning, but I refused to break. The betrayal ran so deep, it felt like I'd lost part of myself. I kept replaying her words, her tears, her pleas, and told myself I made the right choice. Still, the ache in my chest was unbearable. The next morning, I handed over the keys to the house. I signed the papers, watched her pack her things, and left her standing in the doorway crying. I felt nothing but emptiness as I drove away. That house, that life gone. I didn't look back. I knew I'd rebuild, but the damage was done. As I pulled onto the highway, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with rage. She thought she could get away with everything, but I'd shown her she was wrong. The trust was shattered, and I'd take my revenge one way or another. She might have thought she was untouchable, thought she had everything, but I was about to remind her she was wrong. I sat in silence, my hands gripping the steering wheel, and realized I'd never trust her again. Not even if she begged or told me she loved me, because love isn't supposed to hurt this much, and betrayal cuts deeper than I ever imagined. Now I'm just trying to figure out what's next. The truth is out. The damage is done. And I'm left with one simple decision: how to move on from this betrayal without losing myself completely. The fallout hit me like a freight train, and honestly, I wasn't prepared for how heavy it would be. I thought that once I handed over the keys and saw her crying in the doorway, I'd feel some sort of relief. But all I felt was emptiness, like I'd been hollowed out from the inside. I took a week off work and just sat in my apartment, staring at the walls, trying to process what had happened. The silence was deafening. Every little sound, my chair creaking, the tick of the clock, felt amplified. I replayed the last few weeks, the signs I'd ignored, the moments I'd missed, all the small red flags that now looked so glaring. How she'd avoided my gaze, the way her hands trembled during that confrontation, the secret messages I'd found. It all came crashing down on me. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The only thing that kept me somewhat grounded was the plan I'd set in motion. I hadn't spoken to her since I handed her the keys. I didn't want to, not yet. Instead, I focused on my next steps. The paternity test, for starters. That was the key to everything. If the kid was mine, I'd have proof, and I could decide how to move forward. If it was, well, then I'd really be done. I contacted a clinic for the test, set an appointment, and arranged for a private investigator to keep tabs on her until then. I needed to see her reaction, her lies, her attempt to cover her tracks. I was done being the naive husband who trusted blindly. That trust was shattered, and I was going to make sure she understood how deep the damage went. Meanwhile, I also started reaching out to friends and family. I needed support, but I also needed to prepare myself for the inevitable fallout. I told a few trusted friends the basics: No details, just that my wife had betrayed me and I was going through a rough patch. I didn't want anyone knowing specifics yet. I needed to control the narrative. Plus, I didn't want anyone to feel sorry for her, not until I had all the facts. One morning, I woke up feeling a little less numb. I decided I needed to confront her, not in a way to beg or plead, but to get some answers directly from her mouth. I called her, and she answered on the second ring, voice shaky. "I want to talk," I said, trying to keep my tone even. She hesitated but finally agreed. "Okay, I'm sorry, I know I messed up." I gritted my teeth. "Did you sleep with Mark again after I left? Is that what this is about?" There was silence on the other end, then she whispered, "I don't know, I don't remember, maybe, I don't know what to say." That was enough for me. I told her I'd see her soon and hung up. I didn't want to hear her excuses or apologies. I just needed to see her face, look her in the eyes, and decide what I was going to do next. Over the next few days, I kept my distance but stayed sharp. I didn't want to be caught off guard. I watched her from afar, through the investigators' reports, through the recordings she didn't know I had. I saw her meeting with Mark a few times, always quick, always avoiding detection. But I was right there, watching, waiting for the moment when I'd get the final proof I needed. My mind kept circling back to the baby. If the test proved it wasn't mine, then I'd be done. Done with her, done with the lies. If it was mine, well, I'd have to decide whether I could ever forgive her, if that was even possible after everything. Either way, I knew I had leverage now. I was gathering all the pieces I needed to make her feel the consequences of her actions. I also began planning how I'd handle the conversation when I got the results. I'd be calm, collected, and clear. No yelling, no accusations, just facts. And then I'd decide whether to stay or walk away for good. I knew this was going to change everything, but I had to be careful. Revenge isn't about chaos, it's about control, about making her see that I wasn't a fool and that she'd underestimated me. The hardest part, not breaking, not letting the pain swallow me whole. I had to keep telling myself I was doing this to protect what was left of myself, that I wasn't going to let her betrayal define me. I still don't know what the future holds. I just know that I'm a wreck and yet I'm still standing. That's what counts. Every day I remind myself I made the right choice, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. Because in the end, I want her to realize she lost more than she ever thought possible, and I will make sure she does. The day finally arrived, the day I'd been waiting for but dreaded just as much. The paternity test results. I sat in the sterile quiet of the clinic, feeling my palms sweat and my stomach twist into knots. I'd spent weeks building this moment, carefully gathering evidence, planning my next move. Now all that effort was finally coming to a head. When the nurse handed me the envelope, I stared at it like it was a ticking bomb. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, and peeled open the seal. Inside was a sheet of paper with the results, the paternity test. My fingers trembled as I read the words. And there it was, the truth. The kid was Mark's. No blood relation to me. That was the moment I felt a strange calm wash over me, mixed with an undeniable surge of anger. The betrayal was even worse than I'd feared. I'd been played for a fool, and she'd lied to my face all along. I took a picture of the results with my phone, then texted her a simple message. "It's not my kid." No need for drama, no elaborate show, just facts. I knew she'd freak out, but I didn't care. That was the point. She needed to see that I'd uncovered everything, that the game was over. Next, I reached out to the investigator and asked him to keep watching her. I wanted to see how she reacted, what she said when she found out I knew. I also prepared myself for the fallout, because I knew she'd come unglued. I could already hear her crying, pleading, or maybe even trying to manipulate me again. I had to stay focused. Later that day, she called me, voice trembling. "You saw the results, didn't you?" I didn't bother pretending. "Yeah, I saw. Looks like Mark's the father, so tell me what's next." She burst into tears on the phone. "Please don't do this. We can fix this. I love you, I swear. It was a mistake, a one-time thing. I was drunk. I was stupid." I cut her off cold. "No, Lisa, you lied. You cheated. You played me for a fool, and I'm not going to let you do it anymore. I'm done with the lies, done with the cheating." My voice was steady, but inside I was seething. "You're throwing everything away," she whispered, voice shaking. "Our family, our baby." "Not my baby," I said firmly. You made your choice. I hope Mark's the one you really want, because I'm not sticking around for the aftermath of your betrayal." I hung up and packed a bag. I had no intention of staying in that house, in that life, one more second than I had to. I was done pretending, done ignoring. The red flags. Now I had proof, solid, undeniable evidence, and I was going to use it. That night I went to a friend's place just to get some space. I didn't want her calling me or showing up at my apartment begging or crying. I wanted a clean break. I knew she'd try to contact me, probably with some sob story or guilt trip, but I wasn't having it. I had already made my decision. The next morning I took steps to formalize our separation. I contacted a lawyer and started filing for divorce. I wanted to make it clear this was final. I wasn't changing my mind, no matter how much she begged or cried. I was done with the lies, the betrayal, the fake family she tried to sell me. As I sat in the lawyer's office, watching her face pale when I handed over the papers, I felt a strange sense of relief. It wasn't victory exactly, but it was closure. I'd taken control of my life again, something I hadn't felt in weeks. I looked out the window, feeling the sun on my face for the first time in days. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew. I'd survive it, I'd rebuild. Maybe I'd never fully trust anyone again, but I'd learn how to protect myself better. That's what life had taught me. Betrayal can cut deep, but it can also make you stronger if you let it. And in that moment I decided I wouldn't let her destroy what was left of me. I'd walk away, not with hatred, but with a quiet resolve. She'd lost the best thing she ever had, and I'd make damn sure she remembered that. One way or another, I'd come out the other side. And I'd never look back. The final step was perhaps the hardest, letting go completely. I packed up what little I still kept from the house, some pictures, a few mementos, and handed over the keys to the lawyer. Seeing her standing there, silent and defeated, with tears streaking her face, I felt a cold satisfaction. Not because I wanted her to hurt, but because I finally had clarity. The truth was out, the betrayal exposed, and I was free. As I slid the divorce papers across the table, I looked her straight in the eyes. "This is over," I said quietly. "You chose your path, and I chose mine. I hope you find whatever you're looking for, but it's not with me anymore." Her lip quivered, but she didn't speak, just nodded slowly, accepting the finality of it. I gathered my things and walked out of that office, feeling lighter yet hollow at the same time. The weight of her betrayal was still there, but it no longer dominated my every thought. I knew that in the end I'd done everything I could to protect myself. I'd uncovered the truth, confronted her with it, and made my decision. That's what mattered. Driving away for the last time from that house, I took a deep breath. The sky was clear, the sun shining, almost mocking how bright everything still looked despite what I'd been through. I remembered the nights I'd spent crying, the anger I'd tried to suppress, and the way my stomach would twist with every new discovery. But now everything felt different. I had reclaimed my sense of control, even if it hurt like hell to do so. I made a promise to myself: no more lies, no more secrets. I'd learned the hard way that trusting blindly only leaves you broken. I'd rebuild from this, one step at a time. I'd find someone who deserved my honesty, my respect, not just some fleeting fantasy that turned into a nightmare. Looking back, I don't regret the choices I made. They were hard, brutal even, but necessary. Betrayal is a sharp, unforgiving teacher. It strips away everything superficial and leaves you facing the raw, honest truth of who you really are. I realized I was stronger than I thought, not because I won some petty revenge, but because I refused to let her define me with her lies. I'll admit, I still feel the ache, like a dull ache deep inside that won't quite go away. But that's part of healing. It's part of moving forward. I've accepted that some wounds don't heal cleanly, and that's okay. Time will lessen the pain, and I'll find a way to start over. So here I am, writing this final chapter, not to boast or to seek sympathy, but to say this: betrayal cuts deep, but it also reveals who's truly worth your trust. And sometimes the only way to heal is to cut loose the ties that bind, face the truth, and walk away. That's what I did, and I've never felt more determined to rebuild a life that's truly my own. Sometimes you have to lose everything to gain yourself back.